Didn't like my style. Posted by Soriae. If you like these stories and want to see more, please like and subscribe. My wife and I found this gorgeous house, not yet on the market. The realtor had told us we owned all this nice forested land surrounding it. We were sold. Once we were dealing with the logistics of buying, found out we actually didn't own all this land and that someone would be building a huge house right next to us. For context, our driveway runs up the side of our house, and the side is really like the front. We decide whatever, can't be that bad. So the guy takes 2 years to build the massive house that dwarfs ours and kills our view. But whatever, we played the whole time nicely, letting him use our power and water. We have to get along, after all. I bite my tongue over all the inconveniences and him screwing me over and living through construction. Kept things on really good terms. When we were talking, this guy would tell me stories of times he had to move because of fights with neighbors, trying to look tough, I guess. I didn't think much of it. It all started one day in the winter. The way my driveway is and how close his house is, he told me I could blow the snow on the small section on his side in between. I was very mindful not to hit the house with the snow and everything. One day out of nowhere, he shows up at my door telling me to keep my snow on my own side. Okay, whatever. Fine. Be an asshat. I'm not going to get into it with you. From there, it's him telling me he owns half my driveway cause it's on his property, and he's going to rip it up and put up a fence and all this other crap. So I tried and worked with him. He ended up not doing anything but holding that over our heads to get his way on everything. Makes me move my shed, and it's like a mini house, makes me install 180 feet of French drain over a bit of water runoff from my driveway. Meanwhile, he's putting 100s of gal of water on my property from his 2 downspouts on my side and doesn't do anything. One day he decides to put up cameras and points them at our house from multiple angles. This bothers us, but we don't show it. Until a couple of months later, he's out there moving them and adjusting angles to get better views of our main hangout areas in my yard driveway where me and my friends and family hang out, so my wife asks him if he can just not point them directly at us. He brushes her off, so I go and have work with him. This turned into a huge yelling match about all the crap. At this point, it is clear that we both hate each other. The only reason I can figure is that they are super religious. Like have 8 kids and am just super religious. I am covered in tattoos, piercings, ride motorcycles, and listen to all sorts of metal music. Though I'm no idiot, I am respectful and keep my noise to a minimum. So I'm assuming he just didn't like my style. Anyway, after the camera fight, I decided I would start blasting my music in my garage with my garage doors open day in and day out anytime I got the chance. And I played some of the most morbid death metal and other offensive crap to frack with him: Cannibal Corpse, Cattle Decapitation, Infant Annihilator, Limp Bizkit, Acacia Strain, Lorna Shore, anything demonic or that had a lot of swearing lol. On top of that I got a drone and started flying around his house. I started doing hooligan crap on my bike in the driveway and just being noisy. After a couple of months, near Christmas, we see a for sale sign go up. Couple more months down the road, and it's my birthday. They are loading trucks and leaving. Best birthday present I could ask for. Though it pissed me off that he brought a Christmas gift basket, and my wife accepted it, I took this as my pro-revenge win. The gift basket thing just shows how crazy he was. We would do crap like that. Gift baskets, waving at us, saying hi, then turn around and do something to start a problem. I'll never understand it, but I'm glad it's over. New neighbors are quiet and never home, workaholics 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Life is good. And now for the top comments. Imho, you were way too accommodating in the beginning. I would never have moved my garage, for example. Glad it all worked out for you, though. This is petty at best. What harm was caused to your neighbor? Sounds like moving is standard for the guy, and he probably made money selling the house. Petty revenge at best, but good you got rid of that neighbor. And now for our next story. Revenge is dish served very cold. Posted by Infinite. Respect 4757. In my young 20s I moved to a new city to try to start my career and life. Money was very tight, but I was confident I would get things up and running. In my job search, I came across a promising opportunity at a small firm, the firm. Instead of offering me the job, the owner, said he would like me to come in for 2 days and work. If it was fit, they would hire me, and if not, they would pay for the 2 days. Money was so tight at the time that I figured taking the bus to and from the job was a luxury I could not afford, and walked an hour each way to get there. Money was very tight. I did good work both days and worked very hard, but it was not a fit. The owner then tells me, "I know we said we would pay you, but it's just too complicated to set you up for just 2 days, so you will just have to be happy you got the experience with us." The way he acted really rubbed me the wrong way. I was mad as I really needed the money, but as I was trying to find a job and I figured it was not in my best interest to make waves as the word may get around, I was difficult. I did, however, decide that someday, someway, I would get my revenge on the owner. I did find a good job that led to a great career. But I always kept tabs on the owner, looking for the time and place to get some revenge, and even a few times considered some more juvenile methods. Just short of 20 years passed. And now I was very senior in my chosen profession, but instead of working for a small firm, I was a leader in a very large national company that hired firms. As it turns out, we had a large contract come up that I was the lead executive on the procurement team in the area the firm operated in. Things have changed a bit over the years, but bidding on these contracts was at the firm's expense at the time back in the early 2000s. However, to safeguard them from wasting too much money, the bidding would be in stages. Well, sure enough, the owner and his firm put in an exploratory bid. They were not perfect for the job, but they could actually do it, so I assisted in them moving to the next stage, and the next stage, and then the final stage. The easiest thing I could have done was shut them down right away and get a bit of revenge, but they were qualified, so I did not do that. There was some risk to letting them go through to the end, though. Though I was the lead, it was a team decision, and to be honest, if they had the best proposal despite my thirst for revenge, I would vote for them. The proposals and presentation came in, and luckily the other firm was a bit better, and we went with them. Normally the executive lead didn't deliver the bad news in the bid process, but I volunteered to take on the call, and that was my little dose of revenge. It was fun to call the owner, who had no idea we met 20 years ago, and tell him, "We were impressed with your proposal, but it is just not the right fit. I know you must be disappointed to not get the contract, but at least you got great exposure to our process." I know I should have used his own words from 20 years ago, but I could not bring myself to do it. The firm must have done about 200 hours of work on their proposal, so I figured that was payback for my 16 hours with 20 years of interest. And now for the top comments. Absolutely love this. There's a moral to the story that is important. The people you piss off? They don't just disappear afterwards. Behave yourself with propriety at all times. The universe has a way of making the pizza guy you stiffed on a tip be the first person to show up at your car accident. Beats the piss out of the compounded returns on your labor from way back then. You gave that jerk what he deserved. Excellent revenge. Proposals are a pita. This was indeed pro. Maybe it's not as sparkly and dazzling as some of the other pro stories, but anyone who's worked on big proposals knows. This was good work indeed. And now for our next story. Party every night for a year? Okay. Posted by Yoshua82. So I was told this story might fit here. TLDR at the bottom. Sorry for poor formatting or grammar. I went to school in California in the 90s. I bought a house 4 years ago in a quiet neighborhood. I had wanted to get into that neighborhood for years. My best friend lives there. It was a couple of blocks from my kid's school. It was a good neighborhood. Then COVID hit. My neighbors across the street were forced to move at the beginning of the pandemic before the eviction moratorium was in place. They were really good neighbors. We were friendly with each other, and we were sad to see them go. So when the property owner rented to a new family, we were hoping we could cultivate a friendly relationship. Unfortunately, that was not the case. About a month after they moved in, the lockdown started. And that's when things went from 0 to 100 real quick. For the next year, Every night there was a huge party. Cars down the street, music so loud you could hear it over regular house noise in every room in my house. My friend in the next cul-de-sac would text me regularly if the music he was hearing was my neighbors. We tried to be civil. I asked politely. I brought the beer. I offered some killer 420. Eventually, they threatened my wife and me, so we started calling the police. Almost every night for 4 months. We organized with the neighbors. And they started calling the police as well. Eventually, the others gave up and started selling their houses because the renters were just that bad. We were still upside down on our place, so it wasn't an option for us. Eventually, the police told me that I needed to stop calling and that it wasn't their issue to deal with. That I was a bigger nuisance than the renters' music. It was at that time the housing market was taking off. Houses were selling in my area for 40-50K over appraisal value. My wife and I looked at what we needed to make so we could move and listed our home for that. In 3 days, we had a handful of obscene offers to choose one. But it was the lowest offer that stood out to us the most. Their offer was a good 20K under the next lowest, but they sent a letter. I'm a sucker for a letter, especially one with a picture of a young pregnant couple and a dog. And a patrol car? It turns out the young man is a police officer newly appointed at the local PD. And he takes his patrol car home. I knew at that point that this was the family to sell my house to, money be damned. I moved out as the neighbors were throwing a huge party. The next day the police moved in, and they haven't had another since. I drive by regularly on my way to my buddy's place. They just sit quietly in their garage, looking bored. I make sure I honk and wave every time. TLDR, after a year of listening to my neighbors partying all hours of the night and pointing their speakers at my house, and with no help from the local law enforcement, I sold my house to a cop. And now for the top comments. One way to stop obnoxious parties is to get your hands on some liquid ass. Sneak by and spray their yard with it. They won't be sticking around for long with the rotten diarrhea stench it leaves behind. This adds new meaning to the phrase party pooper. I wouldn't kiss off 20K like that, but if you feel you got your money's worth, good on you. I did the same thing with a condo once, but the cop's offer was only $3,500 under the maximum, so I had a bit of luck there. She, the cop, wound up arresting him, the obnoxious neighbor, several times until he finally wound up spending so much time in jail that he ran out of money, and his place got foreclosed on. My initial theory was that he lost his job due to missing work, but another former neighbor of mine says his primary income was being a weed dealer, and a combination of having a cop living downstairs and our state legalizing weed pretty much killed that. I don't know how true that is. What's your say on this? Do you have a similar story? Comment below, and don't forget to like and subscribe.